Stop everything you're doing right now. What I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes will stir something so deep inside you that you may never be the same after hearing this story. Jesus looked him in the eye and said this. Never again. But wait, you think you know this story. You have no idea what really happened in that moment. That man stood there completely broken without any hope. And then Jesus did something no one expected. He didn't shout. He didn't condemn. He didn't turn away. Jesus simply looked into his eyes. And that look changed everything. But here's what will chill you to the core. The power of Jesus's gaze wasn't the most impressive thing. It was what he said next. 2 words that carried a secret of Jesus' words that 99% of people have never understood. And do you know what the scariest thing about all this is? Those same 2 words. Jesus spoke 2,000 years ago. They echo in your heart now because Jesus' words today still have the same power to transform, to restore, to make the impossible happen in your life. You'll discover that this never again wasn't just for that man. It was a message that would travel across centuries to reach you. And when you understand the true meaning behind those words, everything will make sense. Don't leave here. What's coming will change your perspective on who Jesus really is and what he wants to do in your life today. Imagine for a second you are walking down the street, lost in your own thoughts, carrying the weight of your mistakes, your failures, of what you did that no one knows about. Suddenly, you feel someone watching you. You look up and are met with the most piercing gaze ever seen on earth. It's not a look of judgment. It's not a look of anger. It's something else entirely. Jesus looked into his eyes. But this wasn't just any look, the kind we exchange briefly in a crowd. It was a look that stopped time, that pierced the barriers of the soul, that saw beyond the masks we all wear. Have you ever felt this? That moment when someone looks at you and you know they see who you truly are. This is exactly how we should understand the power of Jesus' gaze. He saw the heart, saw the intentions, saw the uncried tears. And in that instant, something in the universe changed. Because when the Creator of all things decides to stop and look directly at a person, it's because something extraordinary is about to happen. But no one was prepared for what Jesus said next. It was an ordinary day in Jerusalem when everything changed. Forever. The crowd stirred, voices whispered, fingers pointed. At the center of all the confusion was a woman. She had been caught in adultery, dragged before Jesus by the religious leaders of the day. They wanted to use her situation as a trap, a way to implicate Jesus in front of everyone. The law of Moses was clear. Stoning, death, end of story. But they didn't count on one thing. Jesus never reacted the way people expected. As everyone shouted accusations, as the pressure mounted for him to condemn the woman, Jesus did something unusual. He bent down and began writing on the ground. What did he write? The Bible doesn't tell us. But what happened next? It changed everything. One by one, the accusers began to walk away. First, the oldest, then the youngest, until only two remained, Jesus and the woman. It was in this moment of absolute silence that the impossible happened. Jesus stood up, looked into her eyes, that look I told you about, and said words that carried a profound mystery. Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Or as many translations put it, never again. But why were these words so special? Why did they carry such power? Because behind them lay a secret in Jesus' words that would transform not only that woman but millions of people throughout history. Did you realize what really happened there? Jesus didn't say maybe you can change or try to be better next time. He said never again. It was a prophetic statement, a divine decree, a hidden teaching of Jesus that few understood at the time. Those words carried the authority of heaven. When Jesus says never again, he's not just giving advice. He's releasing transformative power. He's declaring a new reality over that person's life. But there's something even deeper here. What Jesus revealed in that moment was that he had the authority not only to forgive sins, but to break cycles. He could look at the destructive patterns of a life and say, this ends here. Now, do you see Christ's teachings have always been like this, simple on the surface, but revolutionary when we understand what they truly mean. Never again wasn't just about stopping sinning. It was about a transformation so profound that the person would no longer be able to return to that old life. It's as if Jesus is saying, I don't just see who you were. I see who you are becoming and this new person you're going to be. They'll never want this thing that brought you here again. It was a miracle disguised as two simple words. Now imagine being in that woman's shoes before she had been. Surrounded by an angry mob ready to stone her to death. Fear, shame, despair, all of it weighed on her shoulders like mountains. And suddenly she found herself alone with Jesus. There was no more screaming, no more accusations. It was just her and the man who had just saved her life. A true conversation with Jesus. Intimate, transformative. Before we continue, let me pause for a moment. If this message touches your heart, if you feel something special is happening, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. This will really help me understand that you're enjoying the content and I can continue to bring you these exciting biblical revelations. Just a second and we'll be back to our story. Coming back to that moment, Jesus wasn't just talking to her. He was reprogramming her identity. Every word that came out of his mouth carried life, carried hope, carried a completely new future. Jesus' message to her was clear. You are not defined by your past. You are not limited by your mistakes. From now on, you have a new beginning. And I have the authority to make sure that beginning is real. It was more than forgiveness. It was recreation. As if Jesus was saying, I'm going to make you a completely new person. Someone you won't even recognize when you look in the mirror. And you know what's most impressive? This conversation with Jesus wasn't limited to 2,000 years ago. It continues to happen today. What happened that day was not just a moral lesson. It was one of the most subtle, yet powerful miracles of Jesus we've ever witnessed. Because turning water into wine is impressive to the eye. But turning a broken heart into a renewed life, that impresses heaven. That woman left there completely different. Not only because she had been forgiven, but because she had experienced something few human beings in history have experienced: the creative word of Jesus operating directly in her life. When Jesus said never again, he wasn't relying on her willpower. He was releasing supernatural power, creating within her a new nature, a new identity that would be able to sustain that transformation through faith. This is what happens when Jesus speaks. His words are not just information. They are creative power. They are the same words that spoke light into the darkness, that parted the waters, that formed the first man from the dust of the earth. And that woman became a living testament that no matter how broken a life may be, no matter how deep someone has fallen, an impactful story of faith can always begin when Jesus decides to intervene. But her story was just the beginning of something much bigger. That wasn't the only time. Throughout the Gospels, we find several moving Bible stories where Jesus uses this same pattern. He looks, he speaks, and lives are completely transformed forever. Remember Zacchaeus, the corrupt tax collector. Jesus looked at him in the tree and said, "Come down. I must stay at your house today." The result, Zacchaeus returned fourfold everything he had stolen and became a completely different man. And Peter, after denying Jesus 3 times, he received a look that broke him inside. But after the resurrection, Jesus restored him completely and Peter became the leader of the apostles. And what about the thief on the cross? In the last moments of his life, he received a word from Jesus that took him straight to paradise today. You will be with me in paradise. Are you noticing the pattern? When Jesus looks at someone and speaks, no matter what the situation, the result is always the same. Radical transformation, new life, changed destiny. These moving biblical revelations show us that Jesus never had a hopeless case. He never looked at someone and thought that one's hopeless. For him, every broken person is an opportunity to demonstrate his restorative power. And that brings us to a question that will change everything for you. If Jesus had this power 2,000 years ago, do you think he lost this ability? If his words were able to transform lives back then, do you believe they have lost their power today? Of course not. Jesus' words have exactly the same power today as they did back then. The problem is that many of us grew up hearing that miracles were a thing of the past. That Jesus only worked that way back then. But this is a lie that has prevented millions of people from experiencing the transforming power of Christ. Jesus continues to look at broken, hurt, and lost people and continues to speak words that change destinies. The difference is that today he is not limited to a physical body walking the streets of Galilee. Today he speaks through his word, through the Holy Spirit, through dreams, through other people, through circumstances. He has 1,000 ways to reach you and say exactly what you need to hear. And do you know what message he most likes to speak to broken hearts? The same one he spoke to that woman. Never again. Never again will you be a slave to what holds you back. Never again will you be defined by your mistakes. Never again will you live below the purpose I have for you. This life-changing word continues to echo today, seeking hearts willing to receive it. But there is one thing you need to understand about the power of Jesus' gaze. He doesn't look at you the way other people do. People see your flaws, your defects, your limitations. Jesus sees your potential, your purpose, your true identity in God. When Jesus looked at this woman, he didn't see an adulteress. He saw a daughter of God who had lost her way. He saw someone who needed restoration, not condemnation. This is how he looks at you now. No matter what you've done, no matter where you are, no matter what people say about you, Jesus sees who you really are in his heart. He sees the son who wandered away but who can return home. He sees the daughter who was hurt but who can be healed. He sees the person who lost hope but who can start over. And when you understand this, when you truly understand how Jesus sees you, something inside you begins to change. Because it's impossible to remain the same person. When you discover that the Creator of the universe believes in you more than you believe in yourself, what Jesus revealed through that look continues to be revealed today. You are much more valuable than you imagine. And He has incredible plans for your life. Now, we come to the most impactful moment in this whole story. Those two words, never again, weren't just a hope or a wish. They were a promise, a divine assurance that this woman not only could change, but that she definitely would. Jesus never again became the turning point in her life. There was a before and an after that encounter. Before slavery, sin, shame, hopelessness. After freedom, purpose, dignity, a future. But here's what will amaze you. This transformation through faith didn't depend on her own strength. It depended on His word. When Jesus declares something over your life, it becomes a spiritual reality that will manifest in the physical world. It's as if Jesus was signing a heavenly contract. I guarantee that this person's life will change. I take responsibility for this transformation. My word is sufficient to sustain this new reality. And do you know why this is so powerful? Because Jesus has authority over time. He wasn't just talking about that woman's present. He was declaring her future. He was creating a new destiny. This was one of the most profound and powerful stories of faith in the Gospels. A woman who was seconds from death became an example of how Jesus can take the most broken pieces of her life and create something completely new. But there's one more thing you need to know. This story wasn't just about that woman. It was written in the Bible so that you could understand something fundamental. When Jesus speaks even today, He has the power to transform any situation, any life, any destiny. That never again He spoke 2,000 years ago continues to be spoken today to people trapped in addiction, to people who feel lost, to people who think they've passed the point of no return. Jesus is looking at you right now through these words, through this message, and he wants to say the same thing he said to her. Never again will you be a slave to what holds you back. Never again will you feel hopeless. Never again will you live below my purpose for your life. Jesus' words today have the same creative power they had that day in Jerusalem. They continue to be words that change lives, break chains, and open new paths. But there's a difference. Back then, people had to be physically close to Jesus to hear his voice. Today, through faith, through prayer, through his word, he can speak directly to you wherever you are. So, let me ask you the most important question in this entire message. Are you ready to hear Jesus say never again about what has limited your life? Because he is waiting. He has always been waiting with the same look of love, the same word of power, the same promise of transformation. And when you understand that this is not just a pretty story from the past, but a reality available to you today, then yes, you will never be the same again. If this message touched your heart, if you felt Jesus was speaking directly to you through these words, I want to encourage you to do something. Pray. Talk to him about what you would like to hear never again in your life. Maybe it's an addiction you can't shake. Maybe it's a pattern of relationships that always ends in pain. Maybe it's a wound from the past that can't be healed. Whatever it is, know that the same Jesus who transformed that woman wants to transform you. Leave your experience with this message in the comments. Share what God spoke to you. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of these exciting biblical revelations that can change your life. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that there is still hope, that there is still a word from Jesus waiting to be spoken in their life. Because sometimes we are the instruments God uses to bring his message of transformation to other hearts. Remember, no matter where you are today, no matter what you've done, no matter how many times you've tried and failed, Jesus continues to look at you with the same love, the same grace, the same transformative power. And he keeps saying, never again. Never again will you be the same. Never again will you live without purpose. Never again will you be alone. Because when Jesus speaks, he doesn't just change circumstances. He changes destinies. May this message resonate in your heart, today and always.